Jackie Robinson, Roberto Clemente, Willie Mays, Manny Ramirez, Barry Bonds, David Ortiz. These influential and talented baseball players may have never had a chance in the major leagues if it weren't for the work, willpower, and vision of one man, Branch Rickey. Branch Rickey was the general manager and president of the Brooklyn Dodgers. In 1947, he integrated Major League Baseball by signing Jackie Robinson, a black player from Georgia. This was the first time that a black player was admitted into the MLB. There had been some attempts at integration before, such as in the case of the Toledo Blue Stockings in the 1880s, but this was met by a huge uproar from fans, opposing teams, and other players. No one had ever tried again. Not until 60 years later, by Branch Rickey. Rickey was motivated by a sense of justice and his dissatisfaction with inequality that sat with him since his youth. He also saw great talent in black players that he felt was being wasted and going unnoticed due to segregation. It wasn't just anyone who could have integrated baseball. America was still extremely racist and segregated. All over the country, blacks were prohibited from engaging as equals in even the most basic ways. They couldn't sit at the same counter. They couldn't stay at the same hotels. They couldn't even use the same water fountain. The idea of admitting them to America's favorite sport was a radical idea, sure to encounter great resistance. Branch Rickey had unique leadership qualities that enabled him to surpass the discord and break the color barrier. He had a strategic plan that was built upon his extraordinary sense of timing, character judgment, and management skills. In order for his integration plan to work, Rickey identified 5 problems that must be addressed. The first of these problems was gaining the support of the team owners. As he was only an employee at the time, it was key to have those above him in line with every step of his plan. Ownership must be in line with you, is what Rickey often stressed. The next problem was the aptitude of the chosen player himself. He needed to be adroit, skillful as an athlete, and dedicated to the sport. Rickey spent months in foreign countries only to find the man he was looking for was in the United States all along. The next, and more difficult problem was finding the right man off the field. He had to be a great player, but he also needed somebody who could tolerate indignant baseball fans and relentless media critics. He described his ideal man, a contender with exceptional intelligence and one able to control the responsibilities of himself to his race. Rickey didn't need a man who would fight back and argue. He needed someone who had enough discipline to bite his tongue and hold his chin high. Part 4 of Rickey's plan involved public relations. This included accommodating to racial boundaries and controlling possible embarrassments and even mildly controversial events. With much of the nation already against integration, Rickey could not risk adding any fuel to their fire. The last and most difficult aspect to handle was facilitating positive relations with the African American community itself. Rickey feared their over-adulation and mass attendance could lead to misunderstandings and antagonism between the races. Rickey established a committee of eminent black leaders and other public servants to manage the expected crowds. The one piece of the plan that Rickey had no control over was the acceptance by colleagues and fellow players. From the beginning, he knew this would be an obstacle he had to face head-on, so he worked to control the other 5 pieces. He planned meticulously for 2.5 years, knowing that each piece was crucial and dependent on the others. Branch Rickey could not have made this bold move at any old time. America remained extremely racist, so any attempt then, even in the North, surely would have resulted in a violent backlash. Additionally, baseball itself was a conservatively run sport, open to neither innovation nor change. And while there was no particular statute excluding blacks from baseball, it was an unwritten but universally recognized rule that no club owner was prepared to break. Such a discriminative environment was difficult to work around, so Rickey's moment had to be perfect. The most forceful opposition he encountered was the baseball commissioner Kennesaw Landis. Landis, who bore the most executive power within the MLB, held his ground against any attempts at integration. In 1942, when Bill Veeck wanted to buy the Phillies, Landis discovered his plan to integrate and quickly arranged the sale to another buyer. His domineering presence gave Rickey no opportunities. However, when Landis died in 1944, Rickey was free to execute his forming plan. Albert Happy Chandler, the succeeding baseball commissioner, supported Rickey fully. Had Rickey taken any steps sooner, he surely would have failed, possibly even ruining future chances. Branch Rickey's most arduous objective was to find his player. Here, Rickey's keen sense of character proved essential. Finding a fantastic baseball player was important, but what Rickey really needed was someone who could handle the intense amount of scrutiny, pressure, and intolerance sure to follow as a result of deviating from baseball's long upheld rules. He personally approached Robinson and told him that he would have to wear an armor of humility to survive the league, and made Robinson promise him to refrain from fighting back. "They'll throw beanballs at you," he said. "They'll call you dirty names. They'll taunt you and attack you. Can you take all that without losing your temper?" "Mr. Rickey," Robinson asked, "are you looking for a Negro who is afraid to fight back?" Rickey simply told him, "Robinson, I'm looking for a ball player with guts enough not to fight back. You've got to win this thing with hitting and throwing and fielding ground balls, nothing else." To prepare Robinson, Rickey placed him with Brooklyn's top minor league affiliate, the Montreal Royals, as a test of Robinson's talent. As Montreal was far from the deep southern racism, it became an ideal setting for the start and testing period of Robinson's career. While playing for the Royals, it didn't take long for Robinson to win over the hearts of his hometown fans and even his initially racist manager, Clay Hopper. In the spring of 1947, through Rickey's support and coordination with the leagues, Robinson officially signed with the Dodgers. However, Rickey and Robinson still had to win over the league and public's acceptance. Several teams considered boycotting the Dodgers. These strike threats led to the National League's president, Ford Frick, to declare any player unwilling to play against Robinson banned from the game for life. Despite this threat, players still treated Robinson viciously by intentionally spiking him, aiming the pitch at him, or throwing him off the base. Some of the worst offenders included the Phillies and their manager Ben Chapman. The team's constant shouts of racial slurs disheartened not only Robinson, but his teammates as well. Instead of fighting back, Robinson kept his promise to Rickey to stand above the intolerance and turn the other cheek. People all over America could recognize what Robinson had to endure. His choice of nonviolence and his unwavering disposition accentuated the unjustified hatred and malice that underpinned segregation. By refraining from fighting, he also prevented white Americans from discrediting him. If he had fought back, even once, he would have confirmed their prejudices, but he didn't. He behaved nobly, and in the face of all this hostility, he excelled at baseball. Robinson received Rookie of the Year in his first season and led the league in bases stolen. The strain this all produced on Robinson was enormous. Rickey anticipated this and managed Robinson's career to protect him as much as possible. To shelter Robinson from Jim Crow laws, Rickey deliberately trained him in Cuba instead of customarily in Florida. To minimize the chance of opposing players physically harming him, Rickey placed Robinson at first base to keep him close. With each strategic accommodation, Rickey created an environment where Jackie Robinson could fulfill his potential. Branch Rickey opened the doors of possibility in the baseball world. By successfully integrating Jackie Robinson, he paved the way for players of other races. One such player was Roberto Clemente, whom Rickey also tactfully drafted into the MLB. Following Rickey's lead, other major league teams quickly integrated, hoping to mimic the success of Robinson and the Dodgers. The Boston Red Sox were the last team to hire a black player, and they only held out until 1959. A mere 12 years after Robinson's debut. By the 1960s, young blacks and Latinos came to prominence in the major leagues, and soon, professional football and basketball integrated as well. But the ultimate and most wide-sweeping effect of breaking the color barrier in baseball was its making of public integration easier to accept. The integration of baseball set the stage for the legal and political landmarks of the civil rights movement, and in fact proved pivotal to the deconstruction of the color barrier in our nation. While subsequent milestones such as the decision of Brown v. Board of Education and the signing of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 may have still occurred without the change stemming from baseball, the success of Jackie Robinson made the larger change more likely to receive support from whites. Many African American leaders, including Dr. Martin Luther King, point to the importance of Robinson's role in the movement, as his presence and the following prominence of other blacks created a new norm by which white Americans could more easily accept integration. In changing baseball, Rickey changed America. He forced Americans to confront their deep-seated prejudices. Branch Rickey died in 1965, but long after his death, his legacy and name live on. In 1967, Rickey was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame, and in 1992, the Branch Rickey Award was established for humanitarianism in baseball and for service above self, a fitting award to honor a progressive and morally upright man whose ideals led the nation towards equality.